Always great to see on the outset of training camp season a friend of the program and a friend as well, the creator of Pro Football Talk and his show on Peacock, which you can also see right here on the Roku platform and portal. Our friend Mike Florio is back here on the program. Good to see you, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, our show's still off for another few weeks. There's something called the Olympics that's coming up soon.
I've heard of that.
Heard of it from time to time.
I've heard of that.
Keeping us offline. We're back on August 12th. I've been doing my afternoon podcast, PFT PM, just to kind of, you got to keep the sweat going. You got to be able to talk and make sense, which is something I still struggle to do at times.
Right, and just trying to, I guess cross streams with Olympics and whatever. You're already checking out to see if South Sudan might beat us in flag football one day soon. You never know, right?
You never know.
Check out that the flag football scene. Hey, listen, Mike, let's just jump into some of these stories at the outset of training camp season. What, best of your knowledge, is going on between the Packers and Jordan Love's representation that's keeping Love off the field at present?
They're trying to get a deal done. And, they say it's a deadline-driven business. The question is, when's the real deadline? The Packers apparently didn't regard the start of training camp as the deadline. And we've seen players hold in. It's become kind of a thing in recent years. TJ Watt did it, eventually got his contract. Roquan Smith did it in Chicago a couple of years ago, eventually didn't get his contract. But the player shows up, doesn't hold out, isn't fined. He's there, but he's not practicing. He's not putting himself in harm's way. For Jordan Love, it's a $10.5 million salary this year. He deserves more. The two sides haven't come together yet. I was told yesterday it's more money than structure, but with a deal like this, there's a lot of factors that go into it. How much are they going to guarantee at signing? How many years are they going to be on the hook for? He finished strong last year, but the first half of last year wasn't all that great. We forget about it because of how they finished and what they did in the postseason. But they're sold on him. The question is, what's the price going to be? Does it start with a 5? Does it start with a 4? Does it maybe start with a 6? I doubt that, but that's really what it comes down to. Yes, he deserves a second contract, technically a third contract. What is it going to be? They haven't worked it out yet, and the clock is ticking because it's kind of hard to get your starting offense ready when your starting quarterback isn't practicing.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Clifford, that's not what the Packers wanted to have want to have working with their ones to start their training camp season. And every training camp practice is sacred, man. That's certainly the way coaches are looking at it because of how few times you can put pads on players during the season or how smart it would be to do that sort of thing. Not like you really want to put pads and get your quarterback hit, but it is just when you got everybody else out there scrimmaging, you want your main guy out there. But isn't this something that we knew would come down the pike at some point, that while you were, giving Rodgers his time and winning MVP seasons, that at some point you'd have to make some sort of generationally enriching decision on Jordan Love with a lot of sight unseen? Mike?
Absolutely. No, they've known this was coming, and this is a good thing to have. I hate that phrase, though, when people say it's a good problem to have. The only good problem is no problem. But
that's right.
They're looking at the potential, Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. And what we saw second half of last year puts Jordan Love in position to have the kind of career that we've seen from Favre and Rodgers. There's still a lot of time to go. There's a lot to be proven. What value do you put on what he's done so far and really what he is expected to do this year, next year, and the year beyond? And the big difference, too, is Packers don't have an owner. Packers don't have somebody who might try to take some of that money to go renovate the super yacht. This is all money that can be reinvested in the team. They're really only dealing with the salary cap here. How do they balance out all the different players, all the different needs? What do they budget to the most important position on the field? But this is really, for the Packers, yes, they're on track to an unprecedented one great quarterback, two great quarterbacks, three great quarterbacks in a row. We've never seen more than two back-to-back. So they're in great position here. They just got to work out this side of it. And we've all known it's coming. And Love has said he wants it before training camp. Well, it didn't happen. So now better get it done. Until you do, like you said, it's Sean Clifford out there with the ones.
What's your best guess as to who gets a higher annual payment? Is it Tua or Jordan Love?
I think it's Jordan Love. And, I think Tua, and we haven't heard anything along these lines, and it really wouldn't go with Tua's overall personality and vibe. He might have to hold out to get what he wants, because I could see the Dolphins making a last best offer before the start of training camp that is going to be a lot better than the $23.1 million he's due to make this year. But him saying it's still not enough, it's still not what I want. Yeah, it's smarter for me to take that than to play under the 5th year of my rookie contract. I want what I want, and the only way I'm going to get it is to stay away altogether. Now, obviously, Love didn't do it. Maybe Tua will hold in. But I think at the end of the day, Love ends up with more, because I just don't see the Dolphins making a market-level investment in Tua. There's too many question marks there. He said a few weeks ago, the market is the market, but I don't see the Dolphins going there with him. And the other important thing to remember, Rich, we rarely talk about this because we get so caught up in the numbers. There will be a structure that will provide an escape hatch for the teams. We saw it with Derek Carr's contract with the Raiders 2 years ago. Everybody made a big deal about $40 million a year, this, that, or the other thing. They were able to get out after 1 year. So that's going to be one of the key details for Tua, for Jordan Love, for any of these contracts. How long is the team truly committed? Is it a Browns and Deshaun Watson situation where you're stuck for 5 years? Or is it, after 1 or 2 years, if it's not working, we can just say, see you later, we're going to find somebody else.
So what gives you the impression or the gut feeling or what have you that the Dolphins are hedging potentially from giving Tua the market contract that the Jaguars gave Trevor Lawrence? Is it health? Is it talent? What is it? Because outwardly, what you hear from Mike McDaniel is a love for Tua. You hear the same thing from Tyreek. So I'll just ask that question and lay out, get your answer here.
Well, I think it's a combination of health and this kind of nagging question of how many other quarterbacks out there can do in that offense exactly what Tua has been doing. And are there quarterbacks that can do an even better job? How much of his success is the result of the innate skills and abilities of Tua? How much of it is the Mike McDaniel offense? Now, the Tua side would say, hey, he processes quickly, makes decisions, gets rid of the ball, runs the offense. The other side of it would say there's other guys out there that could do it if they were tutored by Mike McDaniel. But I will tell you this, it's been a few weeks that I've really thought about Tua, and the thoughts are creeping back into my brain. His side wants a market value deal. They want top of the market. And I just don't see Stephen Ross, the owner of the team, saying, I'll sign off on 55, 56, 57 million a year. But there's always the chance that they could do something that looks great on paper, but has that escape hatch or has a structure that doesn't support and doesn't mesh with the big number that we see. The Trevor Lawrence deal, oh, it's 55. When you pick it apart and look at what he had left and look at the structure, it's really not a massive contract, not as massive as market value would suggest. So there are ways to do this, to create the impression he's getting a lot of money, but the Dolphins still have some flexibility in the event there's a backslide from Tua. He lost a lot of weight this year. There was that event back in June where people didn't even know who he was. I want to see how durable that guy is going to be when he looked 20 to 25 pounds lighter than he was last year. You take off that natural suit of armor, it may be harder to stay healthy than it was last year.
Mike Florio's Pro Football Talk and author of Father of Mine, which is available on Amazon this week for 99 cents, and you can pre-order the ebook for $4.99 coming up at the top of the NFL season in September right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Brandon Aiyuk finally said the words, trade me. What happens?
Well, it all depends upon how far he's willing to push this. It's like Costanza on the way out to his fictional house on Long Island. How far is he going to? Or in the Hamptons. That's on Long Island.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
The Hamptons
You're
are on
right,
Long
Mike.
Island.
It's all good, Mike.
You're from that
Second
area.
solarium.
So, he had 2 solariums and he had 2 horses, Snoopy and Prickly Pete. Yeah. How far is Brandon Aiyuk willing to push this? Will he not show up like Nick Bosa did last year? I think one thing he's learned is the 49ers respond to the squeaky wheel. And he really hadn't been squeaking all that much. Remember when Deebo Samuel wanted his contract? And he's like, I want out. And he convinced everybody he wanted out. And then they made him an offer and he said, maybe I don't want out. Nick Bosa last year held out until he got what he wanted. Aiyuk had been very compliant, and now that's changed. So what are they going to do? The problem with trading him now, what do you get in return that helps you now? You're parting with one of your key players, and you're not getting assets that can be used now unless somebody has a player out there that they would say, okay, we'll take that guy in exchange for Brandon Aiyuk. I really do think, Rich, that the 49ers wanted to hold their nucleus together for one more year and then make hard decisions after this season about Brandon Aiyuk, about Deebo Samuel, about George Kittle. Aiyuk is accelerating that by making it clear he doesn't want to play for $14.1 million. I think it's a mess for everyone, and there's a chance he just shows up and he's not as motivated as he was last year. Maybe he gets a little banged up and he chooses not to play through it because he's got no financial security beyond this season. You know, if he ultimately cries uncle, I have a feeling he's not going to have the kind of year that causes him to be second in the NFL in yards per target and second team All-Pro.
So that just, again, makes no sense to me why the Niners would comply right now. And I always, you know, would love to see players with the hammer. I just don't see him having it. You know what I mean? Like, his only hammer is to swing it and say, enjoy, you know, playing Monday Night Football without me against the Jets week 1. Like, and really, and then how far do you take that, right? Like, that seems to be it. But it also seems like the Niners don't usually, I mean, why would they want to have that problem hanging over their team? Like, they
paid all their key guys.
Right.
They paid all their key guys. They traded DeForest Buckner and they squeezed Eric Armstead for a take a pay cut or take a hike ultimatum. Otherwise, they pay their key players. They paid Christian McCaffrey at a time when it wasn't obvious that he was a squeaky wheel, although I think he was doing it very discreetly and very quietly, making it known that it's time for him to be taken care of. But Nick Bosa, last year, same situation Aiyuk's in. Didn't show up, got his contract. So if Aiyuk is willing to incur the daily fines, and when you're in your 5th-year option, you miss a preseason game, you can be fined the amount of a regular season game check. So it can get very expensive. Now, those can be waived. Guys on first contract, those can be waived. Bosa did it last year. And I'd like to think if Aiyuk does it this year, they'll eventually do something. Either trade. And I keep coming back to this, Rich. We reported over the weekend that before the draft, the 49ers and Aiyuk's agents were trying to work something out. And I think he wanted 28 at the time. He probably wants more now, and he should. The market's changed. The 49ers basically said, go find somebody else who'll give you 28. They were authorized to go look to see if there was somebody who would trade for him and pay him 28. 5 teams would do it. So think about this. There are 5 teams that would have paid him what he wanted and given the 49ers value to trade for him. There just wasn't an offer big enough to get the 49ers to say yes. All the 49ers have to do is pay him. They don't have to give anybody anything. So if 5 teams are willing to pay him and give something up, why wouldn't the 49ers just pay him what he wants?
Mike Florio here, a few minutes left with the creator and editor-in-chief of Pro Football Talk. I know it's dangerous to ask you to interpret Aaron Rodgers' comments, but we haven't spoken since he was strolling off of a tee box in Lake Tahoe and talking about Davante Adams to, I believe, a Jets blog site. Pardon me if I'm wrong on that. But, quote, I love Davante. Can't wait to play with him. Pause again. Adams's representation said he's a Raider, doesn't want to get traded. What was that all about? Because it makes it seem like there's got to be some smoke for Rodgers to say something like that, you know?
Well, a couple of things. I watched the full receiver series over the weekend, and there are more than a few scenes where it's clear that Davante Adams isn't thrilled being with the Raiders. Now, that changed when Antonio Pierce became the interim coach, but still, all in all, he'd probably welcome a reunion with Aaron Rodgers. He said recently to Shannon Sharp, he wants Tom Brady to come out of retirement and be the quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders. So even if there's nothing going on, it could be that folks are anticipating the possibility of a phone call or two, and there it goes. Now, here's the other wrinkle, Rich. I think the Jets decided after last year that they are out of the Aaron Rodgers friends and former teammates business. They might make an exception for a player like Davante Adams.
Yeah, I think so, right?
But generally speaking, they saw last year, Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback. He's not a very good general manager. So they are generally not moving in that direction. You saw David Bakhtiari was available. He's not going to be a Jet unless somebody decides to completely change their position. But yeah, it's easier to justify it with Davante Adams if there's a trade to be had.
Well, again, you know, I don't see why the Raiders would do that at the outset of a season. But, and looking at the receiver stuff as you were referring to the Netflix documentary, his frustration with Jimmy Garoppolo was when also Josh McDaniels was the coach. Neither of those guys are there, but it is Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell as well. It's not Aaron Rodgers. And so that's where I go back and forth as to what Adams might be really wanting behind the scenes. This seems like something to keep an eye on if Jets start well, Raiders don't. Trade deadline, even though they did push that later into the season. I just don't see why something like that would happen now. It just makes no sense. Everybody's ready to roll. Everyone's hitting training camp. Everybody thinks they can go 17-0. I don't see it. I don't see it.
You make a great point. I mean, we'll learn a lot over the first 9 weeks of the season. They moved the trade deadline back to the Tuesday after week 9. And maybe the Raiders are in a position where they fold tents on this season. They get value for Davante Adams and trade him to the Jets if the Jets are even good enough. They've got that, not necessarily murderer's row by way of opponents, but my God, you got a quarterback that's taken 4 snaps since January of 2023, and he's going to play 3 games in 10 days to start the season. And they do the 3 games in 10 days thing later in the first half of the season. So, if the Jets can survive and are in position to contend at or about the trade deadline, would it be crazy for a Davante Adams trade to happen? If the Raiders aren't contending, that wouldn't be crazy at all. We've seen things like that happen time and time again over the years.
Mike, really appreciate the time. Let's do this more often. Again, now that, this is it, right? This is it. Ready to go.
This is it. It's over.
I'm psyched.
It's over. It's back. It's good. It's because for what I do for a living.
Yes, sir.
And, you rely upon people visiting your website and engaging with your content. The water gets a little low in the well by way of, content. You really got to stretch to keep people satisfied.
Yes, sir.
Now the fruit's falling out of the sky. It's great. This is the easy time of year because there's plenty of stuff that gets people to come check it out at PFT.
Yeah, Mike. I don't know if you've got things going on in your life. I hear you. I did a top 5 list the other day on the anniversary of American Pie coming out of the top of the top 5 teams that can go all the way for the first time. Good. So I hear you, Mike. I hear you. And for each team, I gave who did I have as Stifler? You know what I mean? I think I forget what. Might have been the Browns were Stifler. I don't know. So I hear you, Mike.
I didn't know which way you were going with that. I'm glad you went the way you did with it. There's a lot of ways that could have gone. Top 5. Yeah.
I love it. Again, Father of Mine, 99 cents on Amazon this week, correct?
Yes, and the sequel, Son of Mine, out September 3rd. I'll send you a copy when it comes out. Pre-order it now for $4.99. Sequel is better than the original, although the original is still good, especially when you can get it only for 99 cents.
So it's like The Godfather. Sequel's better than the original.
You like the sequel better than the original?
Oh, ooh. Really? Ooh. Are you hot taking?
The sequel was like 2 movies jammed into one, wasn't it?
I wouldn't jam a thing about that. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right, I could use a different analogy then. I
think they're the same. They're the same.
Okay, very good.
Son of Mine's better than Father of Mine, but Father of Mine's still good, and you can get it for 99. You can't get anything for 99 cents.
You can't. 99 cents on Amazon, Father of Mine, and Son of Mine is coming out on September 3rd. You can pre-order the book now for $4.99.
You know why I picked September 3rd?
What is that?
You know why?
No, go ahead.
That was the date of the expired milk that Kramer drank and vomited all over Susan's suede vest.
Mike Florio,
third,
next level.
The third. All right.
Take care of yourself, brother.
Bye.
Mike Florio at Pro Football Talk. Check it out. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.